Welcome back, travelers. I'm here today with information that could save you hundreds of dollars and countless hours of frustration at the airport. If you're planning any trips in 2026, whether across the country or around the world, the landscape of air travel has transformed in ways that most people don't yet realize. The changes happening right now aren't minor adjustments or suggestions from airlines and security agencies. These are mandatory, system-enforced requirements that go into effect this February, and they're designed in a way that leaves absolutely no room for exceptions or last-minute fixes. The automated systems now controlling airport security and international border crossings don't negotiate, don't make exceptions, and don't respond to explanations. What concerns me most is that these changes disproportionately impact travelers who have been flying comfortably for decades using the same routines and documents. Longtime travelers who thought they understood the system are suddenly finding themselves denied boarding, charged unexpected fees, or stuck in verification processes that can take 40 minutes or longer. I've spent considerable time researching these new policies, speaking with travel industry professionals, and reading through the official government documentation so I can break this down in plain language. My mission is simple. I want to ensure you never experience the shock of being turned away at an airport, the embarrassment of holding up a security line, or the financial hit of paying unnecessary fees because a crucial rule changed without your knowledge. Over the next several minutes, we're going to walk through every significant change affecting travelers in 2026. I'll explain the new domestic ID enforcement rules, the digital authorization requirements for international destinations, major airline policy shifts, and the hidden costs that can quietly drain your travel budget. More importantly, I'll show you exactly how to prepare so that every trip you take this year is smooth, predictable, and completely stress-free. Let's begin with the change that will impact the greatest number of American travelers, particularly those who primarily fly within the United States. The conversation about Real ID has been ongoing for years, creating a strange situation where everyone had heard about it, but very few people actually felt its impact. That disconnect happened because enforcement was inconsistent. Even after official deadlines passed, TSA officers at most airports continued accepting standard state driver's licenses. They might mention that you'd eventually need to upgrade, but they'd still let you through security with little more than a verbal reminder. Travelers learned they could put off the upgrade indefinitely without real consequences. That grace period has reached its absolute end. Beginning February 1, 2026, Transportation Security Administration checkpoints across the United States will enforce Real ID requirements through automated systems, not human discretion. These systems are programmed to recognize only federally compliant identification, and when they detect a non-compliant ID, they trigger an immediate verification protocol. Here's where the financial impact hits hard. If you arrive at airport security with a standard non-compliant driver's license, you won't simply be warned anymore. Instead, you'll be directed to a separate verification area where you must pay a Confirm ID verification fee. The cost is $45, payable immediately, and it's non-negotiable and non-refundable. But here's the aspect that's going to surprise thousands of travelers. This fee only provides clearance for a 10-day window. Let me illustrate why this matters with a real-world scenario. Suppose you're flying from your home in Florida to visit your grandchildren in Colorado for 2 weeks. You arrive at Tampa Airport with your standard Florida driver's license that isn't Real ID compliant. The TSA system flags it immediately. You pay the $45 fee, complete the additional verification process, and eventually board your flight. You have a wonderful visit with your family, spending a full 14 days in Colorado. When you return to Denver Airport for your flight home, a different problem emerges. Your 10-day verification window expired 4 days ago. The system requires you to go through the entire process again, which means paying another $45 just to return to Florida. A simple round-trip vacation has now cost you an extra $90 purely because of ID verification fees. And the financial cost is actually the lesser issue. Travelers who go through this verification process are routed into a secondary screening system that adds significant time to their airport experience. During peak travel periods like holidays, spring break, or summer vacation season, this additional screening can add 30 to 45 minutes to your security CK point time. That kind of delay can easily result in missed connections, especially if you're traveling through busy hub airports with tight layover schedules. The solution, fortunately, is straightforward. The most reliable option is to carry your United States passport every time you fly domestically. Many travelers still think of passports as exclusively for international travel, but in 2026, your passport becomes one of the most valuable tools for domestic air travel as well. A valid U.S. passport is automatically accepted at every airport security checkpoint in the country, completely exempts you from the verification fee, and allows you to use the standard security lanes without delays. If carrying a passport feels inconvenient or you're concerned about potentially losing such an important document, The alternative is to upgrade your state driver's license to Real ID compliance as quickly as possible. Most state motor vehicle departments now offer Real ID licenses, and the upgrade process, while it requires an appointment and specific documentation, costs far less than paying repeated airport verification fees throughout the year. The underlying message from federal authorities is crystal clear. The era of lenient, case-by-case judgment at security checkpoints is completely finished. Your documents now speak for you in an automated system, and if those documents don't meet the exact specifications programmed into the system, you will face delays and fees regardless of your circumstances or travel experience. While domestic travel requirements are tightening significantly, international travel is undergoing an even more dramatic transformation. The traditional model of simply showing your passport at the airport and boarding your international flight is being replaced by systems that require digital pre-authorization, sometimes days or weeks before you ever arrive at the airport. The most immediate change affects anyone planning to visit the United Kingdom this year. Whether your destination is London, Edinburgh, Cardiff, or even if you're simply connecting through a British airport on your way to another country, you must now obtain a United Kingdom Electronic Travel Authorization, commonly called a UK ETA. This requirement becomes strictly mandatory on February 25, 2026. Before that date, airlines are operating with some flexibility, but after February 25, the enforcement becomes absolute. When you attempt to check in for your flight, either online or at the airport counter, the airline's computer system will automatically search for an approved ETA linked to your passport number. If that authorization isn't found in the system's database, the airline cannot and will not issue you a boarding pass. What makes this particularly challenging is the common misconception about when and how this authorization needs to be obtained. Many travelers assume it's something they can handle at the airport check-in counter or complete quickly on their phone while waiting to board. That assumption is dangerously wrong. The UK ETA must be applied for in advance using the official United Kingdom government mobile application. The application involves entering your passport information, answering several questions about your travel plans, and paying a small processing fee. While many applications are approved within hours, approvals are not instantaneous, and some applications require additional review that can take several days. Waiting until your day of departure to apply for this authorization is one of the surest ways to miss your flight entirely. And here's an important detail that surprises many people. If your flight to Italy, Spain, or any other European destination involves a connection through London's Heathrow Airport, you still need the UK ETA even though you're never actually entering the United Kingdom. The simple fact that your aircraft touches British soil makes the authorization mandatory. Another critical point: travel agents and airlines do not automatically handle this process for you. The responsibility falls entirely on individual travelers. This represents a significant shift in how international travel works. It's no longer sufficient to purchase a ticket and show up at the airport with a valid passport. You must now actively manage digital authorizations before your departure. For travel to continental Europe, additional changes are rolling out throughout 2026. The European Union is implementing a new entry-exit system that uses biometric technology to track every traveler entering and leaving the Schengen area. When you arrive at most European airports, you'll be directed to automated kiosks that capture your photograph and fingerprints before you're officially admitted to the country. For travelers who are less comfortable with technology, these kiosks can feel intimidating. They require you to position yourself correctly for facial scanning, place your fingers on scanning surfaces, inspect ways, and follow on-screen instructions carefully. Mistakes in this process can result in delays or referral to manual processing lines. The more significant change, however, is what happens behind the scenes. The new European system creates a precise digital record of exactly when you entered and when you departed. The days when border officers might overlook a minor overstay or grant informal extensions are essentially over. If you exceed your permitted time in the Schengen area by even a single day, that violation is recorded permanently in the system and could create complications for future European travel. There's also been considerable confusion about another upcoming European requirement called ETIAS, which stands for European Travel Information and Authorization System. Many websites are already pressuring travelers to apply and pay fees for ETIAS immediately. However, that information is premature and in some cases deliberately misleading. ETIAS is expected to launch later in 2026, but it is not yet active or required. When it does eventually become mandatory, travelers over age 70 will be exempt from the application fee, though they'll still need to complete the registration form. The broader lesson here is critically important. International travel in 2026 is increasingly controlled by interconnected digital systems rather than human border officers making individual judgments. These systems verify your documentation, check your authorizations, and review your travel history automatically. By the time you physically arrive at an airport, most of the decisions about whether you can travel have already been made electronically. Beyond government regulations around passports and security, airlines themselves are implementing substantial policy changes this year that directly affect how you book flights, select seats, and travel with medical equipment. One of the most notable transformations is happening at Southwest Airlines, a carrier that has built its reputation over decades on a uniquely simple and flexible approach to air travel. For as long as most people can remember, Southwest has operated with an open seating system. Passengers checked in online exactly 24 hours before departure, received a boarding position, and then selected any available seat once on the aircraft. This system rewarded travelers who were organized and quick with check-in, and it eliminated the complexity of seat assignments entirely. That distinctive Southwest experience officially ends on January 27, 2026. From that date forward, Southwest will operate with assigned seating just like every other major American airline. While this change brings Southwest in line with industry standards, it also introduces new costs and complexity that longtime Southwest customers need to understand. Under the new assigned seating model, seats near the front of the aircraft, seats with extra legroom, and aisle seats in popular sections will all carry premium pricing. For older travelers who specifically prefer sitting near the boarding door to minimize walking distances through the cabin, or who need extra legroom for comfort or mobility reasons, these preferences now come with additional charges on every flight. Southwest is also modifying its policy regarding customers who purchase extra seats for comfort or medical necessity. Under the previous policy, if you purchased an additional seat and the flight wasn't completely full, you could often receive a refund for that second seat after your trip. Beginning in 2026, that refund is no longer automatically provided. If the flight operates at full capacity and you occupy both seats, the second seat purchase becomes non-refundable. This policy shift places more financial planning responsibility on travelers who require additional space. There's also a safety-related regulation taking effect even earlier, on January 11, 2026, that has serious implications for seniors who travel with mobility scooters, powered wheelchairs, or other battery-operated medical devices. New federal fire safety rules limit the size of lithium-ion batteries permitted on commercial aircraft. Any battery rated above 300 watt-hours will be prohibited from air travel. Many heavy-duty mobility scooters and long-range powered wheelchairs use batteries that exceed this threshold. That means some travelers could arrive at the airport with essential medical equipment only to discover it cannot be transported on their flight. The solution is to check your device's battery specifications well in advance of your trip. If your equipment's battery exceeds the limit, contact the manufacturer about obtaining a travel-compliant alternative battery before your departure date. After discussing so many new restrictions and requirements, I want to balance that information with some genuinely positive developments. Not everything changing in 2026 makes travel more difficult. In fact, this year brings some of the strongest passenger protection regulations in American aviation history. New federal rules now require airlines to provide automatic cash refunds in situations where passengers previously had very little recourse. If a domestic flight is delayed by 3 hours or more and you decide not to continue with your travel plans, the airline must now offer you a complete refund to your original payment method. For international flights, that threshold extends to 6 hours. In previous years, airlines routinely pressured passengers to accept travel vouchers or future flight credits instead of actual monetary refunds. Under these new regulations, that practice is prohibited unless you specifically agree to accept a credit instead of cash. If your plans are significantly disrupted and you choose not to travel, you have a clear legal right to receive your money back promptly and without extensive paperwork or negotiation. These rules represent a major improvement for travelers on fixed incomes who cannot afford to have hundreds or thousands of dollars locked up in airline credits that may be difficult to use or subject to restrictive expiration dates. There are also enhanced protections for passengers with disabilities and those requiring special accommodations. If an airline changes the aircraft assigned to your flight and the replacement aircraft no longer meets your documented accessibility requirements, such as lacking an accessible restroom or appropriate seating configuration, that change alone qualifies you for a complete refund even if the flight departs exactly on schedule. With so many changes converging at the same time, the most effective way to protect yourself is to work through a systematic preparation checklist well before each trip. Start by examining your identification. Look at your driver's license today and determine whether it's real ID compliant. Compliant licenses display a star symbol, typically in the upper right corner. If your license doesn't have this marking, either schedule an appointment with your state motor vehicle department to upgrade it or commit to carrying your U.S. passport for all domestic flights. For any international travel, especially trips involving the United Kingdom, apply for required electronic authorizations as soon as your travel dates are confirmed. Don't wait until the week before departure. Treat these authorizations with the same importance as your passport itself. If you're traveling to Europe, Carefully track the duration of your permitted stay and mark your entry and exit dates on a calendar. Build in a small time buffer when booking your return flight to avoid any risk of accidental overstays. Review airline policies carefully before every flight. If you're flying Southwest, remember that open seating no longer exists and budget for potential seat selection fees. If you travel with powered mobility devices, verify battery specifications and contact airlines in advance if you have any uncertainty. Organize all important documents, including printed copies of reservations, authorizations, and travel insurance information. Even if everything is stored digitally on your smartphone, having physical backups provides security and control if technology fails. Plan to arrive at airports earlier than you have in the past, especially during the first several months as these new systems are implemented. Extra time is one of the simplest and most effective ways to reduce stress. Finally, stay informed about your legal rights as a passenger. If a flight is significantly delayed and you choose not to travel, remember you're entitled to a cash refund. If an aircraft change affects your accessibility needs, you have the right to reconsider your trip without penalty. The most fundamental shift in travel for 2026 isn't just the specific new rules themselves, but rather the new mindset required to navigate the system successfully. For many years, air travel allowed considerable flexibility. If a document was slightly expired or a form was missing, helpful airline staff could often make exceptions. If a traveler arrived somewhat unprepared, there was usually a pathway to resolve issues at the counter. That culture of flexibility is rapidly disappearing. The modern travel infrastructure is built on automation, integrated databases, and digital pre-approvals that leave minimal room for last-minute solutions or human discretion. In this new environment, explanations and persuasion carry little weight. Only thorough preparation matters. This doesn't mean travel has become impossible or hostile to seniors. It simply means responsibility has shifted more heavily onto individual travelers. The key to stress-free trips in 2026 is learning to plan earlier and verify details more carefully than ever before. My hope is that this comprehensive guide helps you approach every journey in 2026 with confidence and preparation. The travelers who stay informed will continue exploring eWorld without difficulty. Those who rely on outdated assumptions and old routines are the ones most likely to encounter frustration. Thank you for your time and attention. Safe travels, and may all your journeys in 2026 be smooth, comfortable, and completely memorable for all the right reasons.